Good afternoon, everyone. This is Brittany Willingham, and I am reporting live from the Flint Farmers Market with Chancellor Brego from UM-Flint, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about her perspective on the Flint Water Crisis. Stay tuned. Thank you for joining me, Chancellor. I just wanted to know a little bit about where you're originally from and if you ever saw other communities just like Flint.
I grew up about an hour and a half south of here in Southgate and in Flat Rock, Michigan. And I left there when I was 18, but my work has largely been, my last job was at the Cal State Dominguez Hills, which is between Carson and Compton in California. So my work for about the last 3 institutions have been with areas that were urban, had a number of traditionally underrepresented students, challenged school districts. So I'm not new to a community like Flint.
Okay, so what was your reaction to the news and public officials saying that it was not safe to drink the water?
I think it's a tragedy. I did some work, started work around environmental justice probably 25 years ago. I was working at Caltech, and they were trying to bring a freeway right through the center of a community, and it was largely underrepresented folks in the community, and it would have been very, very disruptive. I also then began to learn about public dumping areas that were placed in communities and water that was placed in communities. So to be in Flint, which was already struggling around economic issues, around tension here, around being a food desert, for a community to be as underserved as Flint is and then get this kick in the gut was really difficult.
So what is UM-Flint doing to accommodate students at this time?
We started filtering water a year ago. Most people don't really even know that when I started hearing about the TTHMs when I first came to campus, that would have been August of 14. So we started to filter in January of 15 and then spread out to the residence halls, drinking fountains, those kinds of things for our own students.
Right.
We also provide water around campus so that if people are going off campus or they're worried for any reason, we're testing our water regularly with a third party. As of yesterday, we posted those test results so families could see those online. And then additionally, our nurses are out doing blood tests for children out in the community. We are offering the free water course on campus. We were the first site of the filter distribution. We gave away almost 3,000 filters in a day, and that was the week that this was all announced, that there was lead in the water. And then you know this as a student. We have students and faculty all over this community, and they've been here for 60 years. Serving in different ways. So some of those students are working with nutrition and groups. Some are working with children in the public schools. A lot of what we're doing right now is we'll get a call that says the NAACP wants to bring in the national director. Can we meet on your campus? The Red Cross needs to meet. Can we meet on your campus? So because we're right downtown, and as Flint goes, so goes U of M-Flint, I just feel like we're partners in whatever it takes to help advance the city and protect the health of the citizens and our students.
There has been mixed thoughts on what type of injustice people think that this water situation is. Some people say that it's a racial issue. Some people think it's a threat to social class. What type of injustice do you think that this is?
I think those things intersect. And I think when you have a community that's over 60% African American, no matter what people's intent is, you can't say it isn't racialized, right? Because I don't know what somebody's heart was or wasn't, what their actions were or weren't, but the community is predominantly African American. I think the intersection of class in race is also limits power to be at the table in the conversations that impact the community. My doctoral work was on social class.
Oh, wow.
And so part of what happens is when you're not at the table making the decisions about your community and somebody else is, there's layers and layers of, one, why aren't we there?
Right.
Two, who gave somebody else the right? And who gave them the right to make the decisions about me and my life? And I think in communities of color throughout this country, they would tell you that that happens all the time. So for me, the issue is how do we not minimize this tragedy And then how do we create the parallel narrative that says, this is home for us. We're
Right.
not going anywhere.
Right.
So what's the story we tell about tomorrow?
Right.
You know, what are the resources we pull together? The reason to me why I came to the University of Michigan Flint is about access.
Right.
When we get this right, when we get people in and supported at the appropriate level, I think that's revolution. I think that gets, you know, when there are more people like you at the table than me, that's what revolution takes. At least for somebody who's working inside a system, right? Because I made that choice to work inside the system instead of outside the system.
What would you like to see happen with this whole Flint water crisis?
I'd like to see them make sure that we've got the lead contained and out of our water. I'd like to make sure that the programs are in place so that when all of the journalists and the people that are stepping in to tell stories about us right now, when they're gone, that we've got a structure that's going to support the families that were impacted. Secondly, I'd like to see an infrastructure going forward that helps the Flint schools rebuild capacity. We can't have a shining city
Right.
without really strong K-12, right?
Right.
So even though the university's role isn't K-12, I believe it's our role to stand alongside the superintendent and recreate the capacity that brings families back to Flint. I think, you know, when you're in Flint, if you Google it, you read everything you read, and then you come to Flint, you say, this isn't at all what I read about. So how do we get that story out there more? How do we create the kinds of spaces so the people who want to live in a community like this have space to live, have ways to be involved? And I think the resources that would now support the work that needs to be done, because there's no way to measure how many people we're going to lose in enrollment, how
Right.
many people are going to move out, right? So how do we shore Flint up while we get that infrastructure clicking again?
Right. Thank you so much for joining me.
You bet. Thanks for making time.